Good morning, everyone. I'm Lauren Surley. I'm the Director of Communications and IGR for the City of San Marcos. Thank you all so much for coming out and allowing us to provide this update to you all regarding the investigation of the iconic village fire that took the lives of 5 individuals and injured many others and changed the lives of many on July 20th of 2018. First and foremost, I want to commend the San Marcos Fire Department, who has worked tirelessly along with a team of investigators for the last 5 years on this investigation. To the families of the victims, we cannot even begin to fathom the pain and loss you all have endured. Our hearts are with each and every one of you, and the City of San Marcos stands by your side through every step of the way. This morning, we're here to share an update on the investigation, including the arrest of 30-year-old Jacobe Ferguson, who is charged with arson causing bodily injury or death, which is a first-degree felony. His booking information and mugshot can be found in the back with one of my teams from communication, then we can get that to you if you don't already have that. Now I'd like to go ahead and introduce the team who will be providing statements today. San Marcos Fire Chief Les Stevens, San Marcos Fire Marshal Jonathan Henderson, ATF Assistant Special Agent in charge of the Houston Field Division Robert Topper, and Brian Frizzell, the father of one of the victims, Haley Frizzell. There are many others here on stage that you see. We provided a full list of speakers and names and titles of those available for questions after the briefings. With that, I'll turn it over to Les Stevens, Fire Chief of San Marcos.
Thank you, Lauren, and thank you all for being here this morning. On July 20th, 2018, a fire was deliberately set at the iconic Village Apartments here in San Marcos. The fire resulted in the tragic deaths of 19-year-old Haley Frizzell, 21-year-old Belinda Moats, 20-year-old Drew Estes, who just yesterday would have celebrated his 25th birthday, 23-year-old James Miranda, and 21-year-old David Ortiz. The fire critically injured 19-year-old Zachary Sutterfeld, who suffered third-degree burns over 68% of his body and a severe traumatic brain injury. Numerous other victims suffered severe but non-life-threatening injuries as a result of this incident. The event has also taken its toll on this fire department and on my members. Since the night of July 20th, 2018, when we first requested to meet with the families of the victims at Westover Baptist Church, we have come to know each of these victims and their families on a very personal level. In the days immediately following the fire, we attended visitations and memorial services for most of the victims. We have cried with them many times. We've also had the amazing opportunity to get to know Zach and his parents, Carl and DJ, and to follow his miraculous recovery. We were there at the Fisher House for Zach's 21st birthday while he was still receiving treatment at the Brooke Army Medical Center, and we were there at Angelo State last fall when he graduated with his bachelor's degree. I've had numerous extremely difficult conversations with these families over the past 5 years. For 5 years, I've had to tell them we still don't have the answers. I want to thank each of them this morning for their continued faith, trust, patience, and most importantly, the grace they have shown us as we have searched for the answers they so rightly deserve. As you will hear from Chief Henderson and others, we have steadfastly maintained to ourselves, the victims and their families, and to our community that we believe this case could be solved. We have been relentless in that pursuit, and that is what brings us here today. We never stopped investigating, and we followed up on every single lead. Although it is impossible to thank everyone individually, I do want to say thank you to the countless individuals and agencies that have been a part of or supported this investigation, And now I'd like to take just a minute and introduce and recognize the individuals standing with me here today, many of whom have been both involved and personally invested in this investigation from its inception. I'll begin first with Ray Alatorre. Ray is the ATF Senior Special Agent. He was part of the National Response Team that arrived to help us with this and was shortly after assigned as the case agent. Mr. Alatorre, thank you for being here, sir. Greg Carlton, also with the ATF Special Agent and a certified fire investigator. Greg has retired from the ATF and has now gone on to other endeavors. Greg was the lead arson and fire investigator who assisted us in determining the exact location and cause of the origin of this fire. Mr. Carlton. Kelly Minor, police assistant, San Marcos Police Department, who came out of retirement to assist us and focus solely on this investigation. Supporting her in that effort was our own police chief, Stan Standridge. Another key to the solving of this case is Keith Posca from the DPS Texas Rangers. Our own fire marshal, Jonathan Henderson from the San Marcos Fire Department, who you'll hear from momentarily, and our deputy fire marshal, Robert Dallimore. I think Robert's right behind me. Also, when this started, Kelly Kistner was our fire marshal. He's since moved on to other opportunities, but Kelly is here this morning as well. Our Hays County Justice of the Peace, I believe, Precinct 2, I believe she still may be doing some work. Maggie Moreno has also been with us since the case's inception. And then from our Hays County District Attorney's Office, both our District Attorney, Kelly Higgins, at the end, and our Assistant District Attorney, Greg Cox. Not here with us this morning, but the individual who's probably been more supportive of me throughout this than anyone is our Assistant City Manager and Director of Public Safety, Chase Stapp, and our City Manager, Stephanie Reyes, who believed in us and gave us the resources and the support to further this investigation. I want to stress that we are here today due entirely to the dedication, professionalism, commitment, and teamwork of many individuals from numerous local, state, and federal agencies. We are here thanks to a collaboration that has endured for 5 long years. Thank you to San Marcos Assistant City Manager Chase Stapp, City Manager Stephanie Reyes, and Police Chief Stan Standridge for endorsing and supporting the formation of this task force, and our partner agencies for your willingness to continue to invest your resources into this effort. We are equally as confident in our Hays County District Attorney's Office and District Attorney Kelly Higgins and Assistant District Attorney Greg Cox's commitment to see justice served for these victims and to see the perpetrator of this crime, who has eluded accountability, to finally be held responsible for his actions. With that, I'd like to introduce our Fire Marshal, Jonathan Henderson.
Good morning. Thank you, Chief, for the introduction and providing the historical background for this case. And now we're going to go ahead and dig into the investigatory measures that have taken place. The investigation began in the early morning hours of July 20th, 2018, when the San Marcos Fire Department units were first called to the scene. The fire marshal at the time of the incident, Kelly Kistner, arrived on scene and realized that the scope of the fire investigation was going to be beyond what the San Marcos Fire Department and the fire marshal's office was going to be able to handle on its own. Requests for assistance to determine the origin and cause of the fire were sent out to the Texas State Fire Marshal's Office and the ATF, which prompted a response by both agencies, including the ATF National Response Team. The on-scene investigation lasted 10 days, from July 20th to July 30th, 2018, during which time evidence was collected, the scene was processed, and countless interviews were conducted. The investigation continued beyond the scene with ongoing collaborative efforts between the ATF Austin Field Office and the San Marcos Fire Department Fire Marshal's Office. In addition to the local work being done on the case test burns were conducted at the ATF Fire Resource Laboratory in Ammendale, Maryland. The on-scene fire investigation work, combined with the work of the Fire Resource Laboratory, determined that the fire was incendiary. This information is contained in the ATF Certified Fire Investigator Origin and Cause Determination Report that was finalized in December of 2018. The deaths of the 5 victims were subsequently ruled as homicides as a result of arson. That was almost 5 years ago. If I was a loved one or a close friend of one of the victims that were killed or injured, I would wonder what took so long. Please know that the investigators have felt this way as well. I don't know how long investigations are supposed to take, but I know more often than not, it's longer than we want. There is no easy button for investigations, only hard work, time, and good old-fashioned police work. Know that this case has always been a priority to the San Marcos Fire Department and the ATF. Each tip or new piece of information was investigated, and a report of investigation, known as an ROI, was generated. Currently, the number of ROIs is 265 and counting. These ROIs represent countless hours of following up on leads and documenting the findings. We have never given up on this case. We have been discouraged, we have suffered setbacks, but never given up. In late 2022, it became clear that we needed a new perspective and a fresh set of eyes on the case. Under the direction of Chief Stevens and Chief Standridge, and with the support of city leadership, the Iconic Village Investigation Task Force was formed. The task force met for the first time in October of 2022 and met almost weekly, communicating often on a daily basis regarding the case. This influx of fresh enthusiasm mixed with previous case knowledge ended up being the needed catalyst. Working on the foundations laid by the previous investigative teams, the task force read through hundreds of ROIs, watched hours of body camera footage, and re-examined all of the data available for this case. I would like to reiterate, nothing the task force has done would have been possible had it not been for the original work done by the ATF National Response Team, Texas Deputy State Fire Marshals, and former Fire Marshal for the City of San Marcos, Kelly Kistner. Multiple witnesses were re-interviewed, yielding valuable information further corroborated by the ATF Fire Investigator Origin and Cause Determination Report. These new interviews are what led to the task force obtaining an arrest warrant for Jacobe Ferguson for arson causing serious bodily injury or death, a felony of the first degree. This arrest warrant was served by the U.S. Marshals Lone Star Fugitive Task Force yesterday morning at approximately 6:45 a.m. in the 700 block of East Slaughter Lane, Austin, Texas. Jacobe Ferguson was placed under arrest without incident and was booked at the Hays County Jail. No other arrests are anticipated to be made for this case. The investigation remains open as the task force continues its work with the Hays County District Attorney's Office. This arrest is one step among many to follow towards the application of justice for the victims of the Iconic Village fire. I would now like to welcome to the podium Assistant Special Agent in charge of the Houston Field Division, Robert Topper.
Good morning. I am Assistant Special Agent in Charge, Robert Topper, for the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives, Houston Field Division. Our primary role during these investigations and investigations like this one is to work alongside of our state and local partners to bring about a resolution. I'd like to thank the San Marcos Fire Department, the San Marcos Police Department, and the Texas Department of Public Safety, Texas Rangers, for all the hard work and dedication that was put forth to identify and arrest the individual we believe responsible for this incident. On July 20th, 2018, the Iconic Village apartment building was set ablaze. The fire claimed the lives of 5 young adults and displaced many others and injured many more. Upon learning of the fire, ATF's Austin Field Office deployed to the scene and then our national response team was requested to support the investigation. Over the past 5 years, witnesses were interviewed, evidence was examined, and laboratory experiments were conducted to determine the origin and cause of the fire. Following exhaustive scientific research at the ATF's Fire Research Laboratory, all potential accidental causes for the fire were ruled out, and the fire was ruled an arson by ATF certified fire investigators. To the families of the victims, we've been working diligently to bring this investigation to a close and to hold the responsible party accountable. Thank you for your trust, and thank you for your patience. As we approach the 5th anniversary of the fire, I hope that yesterday's arrest does provide some comfort. Thank you for your time.
Had this have just been a structure fire and only property damaged, we might not have gone to the extents that we have. But this fire has impacted and forever changed the course of many lives. To speak to you a little bit this morning about that perspective is Haley Frizzell, one of the victims of the Iconic Villages fire. Her father, Brian Frizzell.
Five a.m. phone calls are terrible, and no parent ever wants to receive one. But on July 20th, 2018, my son called me and my wife at 5 a.m. to tell us that his apartment building, where our daughter was staying with his roommate, David Ortiz, and his best friend from high school, Zach Sutterfield, was on fire. And the next couple of hours, traveling from San Angelo, Texas to San Marcos was absolute hell for my wife and I. It was a terrible experience for 5 other families and countless others whose children were injured. Driving around Hays County, Travis County, Comal County, going to every emergency room, going to every hospital, begging for Jane Doe to be your daughter is an absolutely horrendous experience. I can't imagine what everybody else was going through, but I know what we went through. And I would never wish that on any parent or anybody, and for any reason in the world. Nobody deserves that. And the 5 young people who died and all the people who were injured on that day certainly didn't deserve to have their lives changed forever for some reason that's still unknown, but will never be a good reason for any of it, I'm sure. As horrendous as all that was, when we got to San Marcos, we went straight to the fire, and I was actually met in the parking lot of the apartment complex by people running the control. And from the very first time we met, they were absolutely perfect. They were very understanding that it was a terrible day in our lives, and we felt very loved and very informed all day long, from the churches of San Marcos to all the outpouring of love from the community here. I know that Michelle and I and the families I've spoken to, we're happy that this day has finally come. But most importantly, we want to thank all the people who made it happen, because I know 6 or 7 months ago, this sure seemed like it was ready to go and be a cold case forever. And when we heard that the great people behind us were willing to use your time and resources to keep this alive and look one more time, we were hopeful, but not really expecting great results. And so to get the phone call the other day and to know that we'd gotten to a point where we had an arrest warrant issued and then an arrest made on Drew's birthday, what a blessing. And we are eternally grateful for all of those that kept looking and kept re-looking when everybody else said we can't find anything, we can't find an answer. So to the communities of San Angelo and Pasadena, Texas, Austin and San Marcos, we thank you so much for loving us and staying beside us for the last 5 years, because we couldn't do it without you, without our families. And Peggy, thank you for continuing to write stories about our families and our loved ones. Chief, I can't thank you enough for being willing to get one more look at this. For all of you guys involved, we are eternally grateful. So, thank you. I hope that we're able to make this thing stand up for forever. We appreciate you. Thank you for being here.
We'll take some questions now.
Can I just ask, Fire Marshal Henderson, you described that multiple witnesses were interviewed again, and then that led to the obtaining of an arrest warrant. Can you just please take us inside the investigation a little bit more? What was said? What new evidence came forward? We know that Mr. Ferguson lived at Iconic Village. Can you just speak to any of those facts, please?
And obviously, I'm not going to get into specifics, but yeah, so multiple people were re-interviewed. And again, it really just went back to, we started from the beginning on the case, and we started to re-examine everything that was documented by the State Fire Marshal's Office and the ATF, as well as reading the report from the Fire Research Laboratory, which obviously wasn't available at the time during the investigations whenever the initial interviews took place on scene, close to the time of the event, July 20th. And so we went back with that new knowledge, and again, I really do think that bringing in the Texas Rangers, in particular Keith Posca, as well as the rest of the team, Kelly and Robert and Ray really provided the backbone for the investigation, because he had kind of that thread from the very beginning. And so just a new, fresh set of eyes, and again, with that still the historical knowledge of the case, we were able to determine different questions, more questions to ask, that led to new information being discovered.
What facets of this case made it difficult to solve right away? If Mr. Ferguson lived at Iconic Village, I remember at the time in covering it that y'all figured out pretty quickly, like, the general area where it may have started, like where the worst of the fire was. So why did it take, like, what parts of the case made it difficult to pinpoint him?
Fire investigations, because of their nature, are difficult and complex to solve. So if we start from there, we had our work cut out for us from the beginning. In addition to that, again, it just takes time and a lot of effort. And I think that we had the right people on scene in the beginning and continuing throughout the past 5 years. We just needed a new, fresh set of eyes.
Was he interviewed at the time? Was his name anywhere in the records? You know, sometimes you hear about criminal cases where the suspects ends up being interviewed right away and then, you know, arrested years later. Was that the case? Was he ever?
He was interviewed at the time, yes, along with a host of other people as well.
Was there anything that stood out about him at the time?
No more than really anybody else, no ma'am.
Do we know anything about can you share anything about the motivations behind it, or why it happened, anything like that?
No ma'am.
I know an accelerant was used, or
I'm not able to speak to any kind of accelerant that was used.
Did any of the community tips help with the investigation, or was it based solely on the witness interviews?
It was really predominantly based on the witness interviews that we had at the time. There was no tip that came forward that provided new information. It was the task force, the original work by the ATF and State Fire Marshal's Office, the information that they had that led to this arrest.
Can you clarify how he was regarded as a neighbor, as a person in that apartment complex? You know how sometimes you have the great friendly neighbor, you have the neighbor, everyone's like, God, he's weird. Any idea how he was in the?
I'm not really able to speak to that. I cannot speak to that.
Has he admitted or denied any involvement in this crime?
I really don't want to dig into that anymore right now.
And can I ask, what was his reaction yesterday at being arrested?
I would say fairly startled.
And was, like, what kind of place, is this where he lived, or was it a place of business where he was arrested?
Between his place of work and place of residence.
And are you able to say where he works or what kind of job?
Not at this time.
Can you clarify who was in the task force, or you mentioned earlier?
The members of the task force were Keith Pasca with the Texas Rangers, Kelly Miner, San Marcos Police Department, Robert Dallimore, San Marcos Fire Department, Ray Alatorre, ATF, and myself.
How was he connected, or was he connected to Texas State University? Was he going there? Why was he in what was essentially a student?
He was a student at Texas State University,
Was he an undergraduate or graduate?
undergraduate.
You know what he majored in?
No, ma'am.
I know you said that there was no new tip and it was just going back, but can you name like maybe an aha moment or that moment where it was like, this is the person and this is who we're gonna?
Not at this time.
So if there's, I'm assuming perhaps there won't be any of the $110,000 reward to be paid out.
That's correct.
So no reward to be paid because there wasn't a tip that played a role into this today.
You are correct.
Where is he being held, and what are the prospective charges that you intend to file?
So the charges that have been filed are for arson causing serious bodily injury or death, which is a first-degree felony, and he's at the Hays County Jail.
Any murder charges possibly pending? Homicide?
I'm gonna leave that up to the DA's. The DA's office. We're working with them on that, and any other charges that might be filed later will come from them.
Can you speak to when, he's living in Austin now, can you say about when he moved away from San Marcos? Was it a short time after the fire, or do you know?
It's in our notes. I don't have that for you right now, though.
Does he have any other previous arrests or any other kind of arson charges?
No.
Can you speak to where approximately in the building or around the building it started? And can you say what was set on fire? I mean, what was the initial point of ignition?
The importance of the origin and cause determination report can't be overstated as far as how that helped us solve this case. And so we are going to go ahead and hold that one pretty close to the vest for now.
Was it the building he resided in?
The fire was in building 500. He did not reside in the 500 building.
Did he have any relationships, romantic or attempted romantic relationships, anything like that?
I can't speak to that, not because I don't want to tell you, but I don't know.